In the mysterious first episode of From, something strange is happening in a small town. Boyd Stevens walks the streets, ringing a bell that sends everyone hurrying home, a ritual that seems both urgent and ominous. At a diner, Sarah Myers is closing up, urging her last customers to leave. When they do, a jukebox starts playing on its own, adding to the eerie atmosphere. Outside, young Megan Pratt is enjoying the swings, but her mother Lauren insists she comes inside, hinting at some unseen danger. Boyd, still on his rounds, also encourages Megan to go in. Nearby, Kenny is playing chess with his dad Bing Qianlu. Their game is interrupted by Christy, wearing an EMT shirt, who tells Bing it's time to head to the basement. Bing reacts angrily, throwing the chess pieces in frustration. Kenny talks to Christy outside, sharing his hope that his dad will recover from whatever ails him. After Kenny leaves, Christy checks something mysterious by the door. Boyd, still vigilant, watches people outside a distant house. He and Kenny check that everything is safe before Kenny heads home. At the post office, a sign reveals it's been 96 days since the last incident, hinting at ongoing danger. Elsewhere, Frank Pratt is being pushed to go home by Tom, who's worried about Frank's wife Lauren's reaction. Lauren, at home with Megan, tries to reassure her daughter about Frank's return, but her words seem uncertain. After Megan prays, she hears a knock at the window and sees her grandmother, but something feels off. Her grandmother beckons her, promising to keep it their secret. This episode sets the stage for a series filled with suspense and mystery, where every character seems to be hiding something, and danger lurks just out of sight. Megan moves to the window and pulls back the curtain. As she does, Lauren enters the room and is surprised when Megan comments that the lady outside doesn't resemble her grandmother. Ignoring Lauren's warning, Megan opens the window, only to be assaulted by a creature.
I'm so lonely.
Baby, please just...
Maybe I can come in?
Switching scenes, we see the Matthews family in their RV. Jim is at the wheel while Tabitha sits beside him. Their kids, Julie and Ethan, are in the back. Julie uses hand puppets to stage a play, and Ethan is visibly upset, begging her to revive a character named Norman. Tabitha tries to soothe Ethan by assuring him that monsters are fictional, so Norman must still be alive. Meanwhile, Frank decides it's time to head out. He's surprised to find a crowd outside his house and thinks Lauren has organized another community event. But things take a dark turn when Boyd confronts Frank outside, angrily accusing him of not securing the house properly. He drags Frank inside to confront the consequences of his negligence, threatening dire consequences if he refuses to look. Boyd then orders Kenny to imprison Frank. Downstairs, Boyd reports to Father Kotri, declaring that everyone is now under his care. As Kotri ascends the stairs, Boyd spots a fallen decorative item. Back in the RV, Jim reminisces about the first time they visited Tabitha's parents, recalling his fear of their disapproval. Tabitha, however, asks him not to dwell on the past. Suddenly, their journey is interrupted by a fallen tree blocking the road. They realize they need to backtrack. Ethan, intrigued by the tree, wants to walk on it, and Jim cautiously helps him. Just then, a group of crows gathers overhead, unsettling them enough to decide to leave quickly. In another scene, Boyd visits Donna, who reminds him of a previous agreement that he wouldn't come around anymore. However, Boyd insists on seeing his son, Ellis. Inside, he finds Ellis sketching a portrait of Fatima, who is delighted to see him. After a warm reunion, Boyd shares with Ellis the sad news of recent losses in their community, suggesting it would be good for him to attend a memorial service. Ellis is busy when his dad, Boyd, comes to talk to him. He tells Boyd he's occupied, and Boyd decides to leave.
It might be nice if you came to the service.
Elsewhere, Julie's phone loses its signal, and Tabitha also realizes they might have taken a wrong turn. Jim tries to lighten the mood with Ethan, making jokes about the crows they saw. However, Tabitha points out they were actually ravens. As the Matthews family drives into Boyd's town in their RV, they notice something odd. All the parked vehicles have flat tires. They stop near a funeral where Father Kotri is leading a prayer for Lauren and Megan. Jim steps out to ask for directions, but the locals ignore him. Boyd steps in, telling the townspeople to leave the Matthews alone and saying he and Kenny will help them. Boyd advises Jim to keep driving up the hill to find the highway. Back in the RV, the family is unsure how long it will take to reach the highway. Julie scares Ethan by telling him that a group of crows is called a murder. Jim asks her to stop, and Tabitha corrects them, saying they're ravens, known as an unkindness when in a group. The family ends up back in the small town, where the locals still seem uninterested in helping them.
Wait. Did we turn somewhere?
No,
Tabitha suggests they just leave, guessing they missed their turn. In town, a woman comments on the sadness of still hoping to find the road home. Sarah tells her brother Kevin to move on, as there are chores to do. Meanwhile, Tabitha and Jim argue about the wrong turn they took and getting lost. Right after they start driving again, Jim and his family find themselves back where they began. Jim tries another direction, but their journey takes a sudden turn. Kenny and Boyd are talking when they see the RV approaching. Jim tries to dodge a car on the road but ends up crashing the RV. He quickly checks on his family. Julie is hurt but okay, Ethan is trapped with what seems like a branch through his leg, and Tabitha is unconscious. Jim himself is stuck in the driver's seat, blocked by a tree that smashed through the windshield. The driver of the other car, a bit dazed, walks over to Boyd and Kenny and tells them about the crash. Boyd tells Kenny to get help from Katri and Christy, then rushes to the RV, while Kenny handles the man from the car. The man, Toby McRae, makes his way to the clinic and meets Christy. Another guy, trying to get out of Toby's car, is a bit disoriented and ends up handcuffed to the car by Boyd for safety. Boyd then focuses on helping Jim and his family, assuring them that more help is on the way. He gets into the RV, checks on Tabitha, and then helps Julie get out. Meanwhile, Father Katri and Kenny ask Ellis to help them as it's getting dark. Ellis, despite being upset with his father, agrees. At the clinic, Gina takes care of Toby, while Bing, another resident, expresses his displeasure about Toby's arrival. At the accident site, Christy attends to Jade, the man handcuffed to the car, while Julie is taken out of the RV. Boyd reassures her that more help is coming. Jade flirts with Christy as she checks his hand and leg movements.
I'm Jade.
Hi, Jade. Any pain or anything like that?
What's your name?
I'm Christy.
Ellis notices the car's New York license plates and recalls that Sarah and Nathan, two people they know, were also from New York, but Christy thinks they were from Boston. As more help arrives, the situation at the accident site becomes increasingly hectic. Father Katri offers Jade a drink, and Jade comments on the beauty of the people around him. In the clinic, Sarah tends to Toby, giving him a drink and reassuring him he's now in a safe place. Ellis and Kenny manage to get Tabitha out of the wrecked RV. Tabitha and Julie check on each other, but Tabitha suddenly feels weak and almost collapses. Christy updates Boyd about a patient's condition. He's stable, breathing fine, and has a strong pulse, but there's a table leg impaled in his thigh. They can't just pull it out. It'll take about an hour to do it safely. Boyd wonders if Christy can stitch up the patient inside the RV. Christy thinks it's possible and goes inside to help. She instructs Jim on how to support his son's neck to avoid further injury. She suggests Jim should go talk to his wife outside. Outside, Boyd is trying to persuade the family to go indoors for their safety, especially the children's.
We don't have a lot of time to talk about this.
We're not leaving anywhere.
Please listen to me. These woods are not safe after dark.
Meanwhile, Sarah is with Toby, who is panicking about something he did. In an unexpected turn, Sarah calms him with a kiss before suddenly ending his life. Boyd tells Ellis to free the handcuffed man if he causes trouble, but Ellis is skeptical about their situation. Boyd just asks Ellis to focus on helping the family. Tabitha, speaking with Jim, suggests they leave with Thomas, but Jim has to remind her their son Ethan is the one trapped in the RV. Jim attempts to explain the situation to Tabitha, who remains distrustful of the locals. Kenny interrupts, urging them to leave immediately. Back in the RV, Christy is looking for lamps or lanterns. Boyd clings to an ornament, hoping it will offer protection through the night. He prepares the RV for departure, ensuring everyone is as safe as possible. On their way back to town, their truck hits spike strips on the road. Father Katri assures them they'll be okay if they can reach Colony House. Kenny urges everyone to run fast.
Shit!
Regardless of what they encounter, Jim is confused about Boyd's earlier statement regarding the RV's safety, but Boyd insists there are things Jim wouldn't understand. Ethan wakes up in pain and starts having convulsions. Christy instructs Jim on what to do while Boyd covers the windows. Outside, Boyd hears a disturbing sound and looks out, only to see a group of people approaching the RV. Kenny struggles with his emotions as he tries to cut down a tree. Back at the RV, Christy is doing her best to help Ethan, who has just stopped having seizures. He's breathing and stable now. Outside, Jim hears voices and thinks they're there to help, but Boyd disagrees, insisting they're not human and not here to help. Meanwhile, Ellis, Julie, and others are hurrying back to their house to escape the creatures. Jade falls, slowing them down, but they pick him up and carry him to safety. A woman inside a house spots them and starts ringing a bell, alerting everyone that there are people outside. When Fatima sees Ellis outside, She gets into an argument with a guard who won't open the door. Donna comes down and orders the door to be opened. As Julie and her group are approached by a couple of people, including someone Julie knows, Kenny takes a shot at one of them. The group quickly gets inside, but they're forced to lie on the floor and are tied up. Boyd and Christy wonder if the creatures have left, but it's hard to say. Boyd checks on Jim, who's concerned about the strange creatures. Boyd explains that they use talismans in the town for protection, though no one knows exactly how they work. Jim is skeptical about the talismans, finding the idea unbelievable. Christy and Jim then discuss Ethan's seizures, which are unusual for him. Christy decides to focus on treating Ethan's leg injury, giving him a sedative to ease his pain. Trudy and Ellis talk about Jade and the 2 cars they found. Trudy is curious about Jade's watch, but Ellis tells her not to touch anything. Despite Ellis's instructions, Trudy decides to stay and watch over Jade for a while. Donna comes back to Tabitha and says sorry for the earlier situation, but she tells her it was necessary and she'll understand soon. When Donna frees her,
Listen, sorry about what happened down there, but it was necessary. We'll understand that soon.
Tabitha tries to rush to her daughter but is stopped by Donna and a man with a gun. After calming down, Donna explains that these are just safety measures they take because everyone reacts differently on their first night. She reassures Tabitha that everyone there has been through this and they don't intend to harm her or her daughter. Donna wants to explain the new rules to Tabitha before letting her see her daughter and asks if she believes in monsters. Downstairs, Julie is tied up when Victor comes in to get some peaches. He mentions that they're not really supposed to have them, but Donna sometimes lets it slide. He offers to share the peaches with Julie and comments on how unusual it is to have 2 cars arrive at the same time. Fatima then steps in, telling Victor to leave Julie alone. Once he's gone, Fatima tells Julie that Victor is a bit weird but harmless. She says she'll be Julie's companion for now, explaining that they tie up newcomers because their first night can be overwhelming and scary. Fatima admits that pointing guns at them was too much but assures Julie that everyone is just trying to do their best. She offers to untie Julie and show her something if she promises not to panic.
We just don't want anyone getting hurt.
Fatima takes Julie to see Ellis' drawings, suggesting that Ellis might want to draw Julie because she's beautiful. Fatima explains the need to keep windows covered, as the creatures outside try to mess with your mind and lure you to let them in. She encourages Julie to look out the window, but not to look down, suggesting that even nightmares can seem dreamlike from high enough. Meanwhile, Christy checks on Ethan, confirming his breathing and pulse are okay. They hear someone outside offering help, and Jim wonders what will happen if they get inside. He questions why Boyd doesn't use his gun, but Boyd explains it's useless against them. As Boyd tries to keep everyone calm, he assures them that the creatures can only enter if they're let in. Christy starts panicking about the talisman not working, but Boyd reassures her that they'll be alright. In the midst of the chaos, everyone is trying to focus on helping Ethan. Kenny is upset with Father Kotri because Julie and Tabitha are restrained, but Ellis informs them that a room is ready on the 3rd floor. There's a brief debate about whether they should be tied up, but it's left unresolved.
But you're not gonna tie us up first?
Jade is unconscious, and when he wakes up, he's expected to struggle because of the drugs in his system. Ellis and Kenny have a disagreement about the spike strip on the road, but Father Kotri intervenes. To ease the tension, Ellis offers them alcohol. Meanwhile, Bing Qianlu, who reveals his real name as Fu Hen, is playing chess with Gina. He shares that chess was a universal language for him, helping him communicate when he first arrived in America and didn't speak English. Christy and others are working to remove the object from Ethan's leg. The procedure is painful and loud but successful, and they start stitching him up. Sarah Myers is deeply disturbed after ending Toby's life. She's pacing, struggling with her actions, and tries to remove the screwdriver from Toby's neck, then contemplates further actions with a scalpel. Kenny, drinking with Kotri, talks about his mother's likely worries and shares memories of his father making him play chess for hours. He admits he used to hate it, but now appreciates Christy's care for his father. Kotri reassures Kenny that Boyd and the others will be fine and plans to pick them up in the morning. Kenny expresses his emotional strain due to recent events involving Lauren and Megan. He feels on the brink of breaking down.
You know, he used to make me play for hours when I was a kid, and I hated it.
Elsewhere, Ellis talks to Julie about Fatima and learns she's just using the restroom. They discuss Julie's mom, who is busy talking to Donna. While discussing his drawings, Tabitha hints that Donna might be unstable, but Donna reflects on the strange occurrences they've experienced, drawing a parallel to her sister, who was known to be quite a character. Donna and her sister were hunting when they encountered a tree blocking the road. Tabitha is shocked to hear that Donna knew about the tree and the crows. Donna had suggested returning to a motel, but her sister was worried about their deer meat spoiling. When they drove into the town, they saw people in the street. The second time around, someone blocked their way. Donna's sister got out with a shotgun, yelling at the person to move, but the figure just stood there, smiling eerily. Then, in a horrifying moment, it attacked her sister. Donna ran away, hiding in the bushes. She recalls this was how people survived in this place. Hearing her sister's screams, Donna understood she was being tortured, believing the attackers enjoyed the hunt and the game. Tabitha was fortunate to have been found and helped while the sun was still up. Even after 3 years, Donna is haunted by her sister's screams.
But it just stood there, smiling.
In the RV, Christy, a third-year medical student, prepares saline to clean Ethan's wound. She talks about improvising in their situation. Jim, an engineer who designs theme park attractions, is still speaking as if everything is normal, which Christy finds odd. Ethan, in pain, mentions seeing the lake of tears and drawings on the walls, reminiscent of his childhood drawings that his father would hang on the fridge. Victor, meanwhile, is sketching a scene of the vehicle crash. Ethan tells his dad about a spider coming down from the ceiling, causing someone to scream. Jim reassures his son that everything will be alright. Kenny shares with Father Kotry about his father's dementia. He recounts a time when his father wandered off and took a bus to the city. On their drive to retrieve him, Kenny's mother was frustrated, not understanding that his father couldn't control his actions. Kenny hoped for a second chance to make things right, but their journey was cut short by the downed tree. Later, Kotry finds Kenny asleep during their conversation. In another scene, Sarah is showering while her brother knocks on the door, mentioning he took a nap and didn't realize she had arrived. She opens the door and asks Kevin for help, saying she had no other choice.
I didn't have a choice.
Gina, in the meantime, urges Bing to rest. Bing confesses he's scared and troubled by nightmares. When Gina checks on Toby, she's shocked to find him dead. Panicked, she tries to escape but encounters 2 eerie figures or creatures at the door. Frightened, she runs downstairs and locks herself in a room. Jim picks up a talisman, wondering how it works. Suddenly, monsters seem to break in, but it turns out to be just a nightmare Christy is having. Boyd reassures everyone that they'll be safe now that daylight is approaching. Tabitha and the others arrive in a van, and Jim carries Ethan out of the RV, back to the road. Sarah confides in her brother about a little girl and broken glass. The girl keeps trying to piece together the broken shards, even though they cut her and make her bleed. Sarah says the girl believes there's a meaning in the broken pieces. Sarah also admits she hears voices telling her it had to appear as if monsters were responsible for certain actions. She reluctantly confesses she left a door open, leading to a tragic event.
Sarah.
I hear their voices. And it's just like the broken glass.
Kenny and others arrive at the clinic and find the door ajar. Kenny rushes in to check, with Father Kotry following. Inside, they discover Bing has died. Kenny, grieving, holds Bing and then goes outside to chop down a tree. Boyd tells Kenny they're heading back to Colony House for the night. Kenny shares that the chess set he made with his father is ruined, stained with blood. He observes that the monsters walk slowly, as if they know their victims have limited places to hide. Boyd removes a chessboard, indicating another incident has occurred. He then sits down and pulls out a key with a boat-shaped fob reading to buoy D. Meanwhile, Julie plays with Ethan, being kinder to him. Ethan seems fixated on something outside the window but doesn't share what he sees. Outside, a boy dressed in white tells Ethan to stay quiet as the episode concludes. In the first couple of episodes of From, we got a glimpse into the lives of the residents, the new arrivals, and the strict rules everyone must follow to survive. In the third episode, titled Choosing Day, we see the impact of these rules and how people deal with their tough everyday lives, which barely resembles normal living. Jade, involved in the crash with the Matthews RV, mistakenly thinks he's been dropped into a life-sized game. He wanders from Colony House to the diner, exploring the town and chatting with locals. He's on a mission to unravel the game he believes he's in, even doubting his friend's death. The explanations given by the townspeople seem too bizarre for newcomers to easily believe. The Matthews family faces a big decision: whether to settle in the Colony House or stay in the town.
Sorry to interrupt. Father Kotry's here to talk to you about the choosing ceremony.
Father Kotry takes the parents on a tour, answering their questions and showing them the harsh consequences of rule breaking, including a chilling example involving a mother and daughter. The family struggles to come to terms with the harsh reality of their new surroundings, a mix of disbelief and dawning realization on their faces. Sheriff Boyd Stevens faces a tough decision, using the town's extreme form of punishment, which is leaving someone outside overnight without any protective talisman, essentially a death sentence. Father Kotry points out that not using this harsh method could lead people to think there are no consequences for wrongdoing. This adds to the already high stress levels among the townsfolk as they try to live their daily lives. The show continues to captivate with its tense atmosphere and sense of dread, although some plotlines seem a bit forced or out of place. There are many stories being balanced in this episode, and while they're handled well, it's unclear if all are necessary, even in the early stages of setting up the show's world. More revelations are expected, hopefully leading to more thrilling developments and insights into the town's intriguing characters. Adding Jade's story to the mix brings an extra layer of weirdness and complexity. By the episode's end, he starts to realize there's more to the town than meets the eye. His challenges are an interesting foil to what the Matthews family is facing, especially with their 2 young children, each coping in different ways, adding to the family's stress. Choosing Day throws a lot of ideas and storylines at the audience, hinting it's time to delve deeper into the town's secrets that the writers have been cautiously circling. The town is like a powder keg of tension, and it's intriguing to think about where the story will head next. We knew Victor had been in the town for a long time, but now we know he grew up there. This town raised him, and can you even imagine that? One day, as a young boy, Victor comes out of an underground cellar, holding his unique disco metal lunchbox. But his good mood quickly vanishes when he finds the path to town littered with bodies. He then makes a colorful drawing of Julie Matthews, who wakes up to see him sketching her. Victor talks about how dreams can turn out to be real memories. He hands her the picture and leaves. Trudy, noticing her pillow with Julie, asks for it back. Julie feels a bit embarrassed about having Trudy's pillow, but Trudy explains it's like her comfort item. Julie thinks Trudy's okay with her having used it because she was asleep. It seems like sharing things is a common practice at Colony House. Jim finds Tabitha resting on a dining table and suggests turning on a light to make things less gloomy. Tabitha prefers the dimness, saying it's her favorite time of day. Jim recalls her crying all night and sympathizes when she has another emotional moment. She wonders if their situation is a punishment, pointing out they're using belongings of those who passed away, like a mug, and living in a place where a child once lived. Ethan expresses his worry about his mom and says he misses Julie. Jim tells him about a community breakfast at the diner, but Tabitha chooses to stay back and unpack a bit more.
I'm going to unpack.
Boyd is busy clearing the area next to the Matthews' new place, which is near a structure known as the box. He's dealing with the grim task of moving Frank's body on a makeshift cart. When Boyd sees Ethan and Jim smiling near the house, he pretends he's just transporting supplies and suggests they head to the diner for breakfast. At the diner, Sarah Myers welcomes them and leads them to a special area, mentioning Jim's brave actions in the woods. Jim expresses his gratitude. Boyd tells Father Cautry to bury Frank with his relatives. When Cautry asks about Boyd's return for the funeral service, Boyd, with a smirk, questions if Cautry will tell his followers that Boyd wanted Frank dead. Boyd then reminds Cautry to return the cart before leaving. Meanwhile, Deputy Kenny meets up with Jade in the underground cellar.
What are you doing out here?
I want to show you something.
Jade shows Kenny around and talks about the strange illusions he's been experiencing. Kenny thinks it might be because of the stress from being in such an odd place, but Jade is convinced he's still mentally sound. Kenny then mentions there's something at the police station that Jade needs to see. Tian Chen Lu brings pancakes to Ethan, who eagerly starts eating. Ethan asks if this is their new home, and Jim replies that it's just a temporary arrangement. Ethan, with the imagination of a child, compares their situation to a hero's journey, likening it to a story about Norman's adventure in the Lake of Tears. He feels like Thomas, a character from his stories, is with them and might help them save the kingdom. While Jim is away, Victor shows Ethan a picture, asking if that's the person he saw in the woods. Ethan confirms it. When Jim comes back, he's upset with Victor for talking to Ethan about it. Fatima shares her own experience of adjusting to life at Colony House. She mentions how she managed to get her clothes from Trudy, including an Armani shirt once owned by a fashionable crossdresser named Charlie from Duluth. She explains the benefits of being in charge of laundry.
Come on. Up, up, up. Oh.
Like getting the first choice of clothes. Tabitha gives Julie a sweater, but their conversation takes a turn when Tabitha suggests they made a mistake moving there. This upsets Julie, who storms off. Tabitha talks about the importance of family, but Julie finds it ironic since the trip was supposed to be about discussing their divorce. She reminds Tabitha that they have 2 other kids, not just Thomas, who isn't with them. Fatima then steps in, introducing herself to Tabitha. Meanwhile, Kenny shows Jade a world map with pins marking where each resident came from, like Kenny's family from Austin, Texas, and Christy from Detroit. They start discussing the idea of the town being like an escape room, with Jade suspecting someone is controlling their situation. He's determined to find out who, but Kenny warns that it could drive him crazy. Suddenly, a static noise from the radio catches Jade's attention. Tabitha comes back home to find Jim waiting for her on the porch. He starts talking about a child's crayon drawing of a boy in white. Tabitha changes the subject to Julie's worries about their potential divorce. Jim shares that he had a tough conversation with Victor but reassured him that things will be alright. Their conversation gets a bit tense as Jim tries to convince her that everything will work out fine.
Everything's gonna be okay.
Oh, please stop saying that.
What do you want me to say?
I don't know.
Meanwhile, Ethan is in the kitchen, overhearing their argument. His attention shifts when Victor taps on the window, wanting Ethan to join him in searching for the mysterious boy in white. Ethan hesitates, saying he shouldn't leave the house, but Victor insists they've been chosen for this task and persuades Ethan to swap his crutch for a stick. Outside, Boyd is busy reinforcing a wall when Father Kotri comes over with a cart. The priest comments on Boyd's tough attitude, suggesting it's his way of coping with what happened to Frank. Boyd denies it's about Frank, leading Father Kotri to talk about the number of burials he's handled and how Boyd's arrival in town changed everything. He notes that Boyd found a talisman and brought some order amidst the chaos, helping people to start living again instead of just surviving. Father Kotri acknowledges the sacrifices Boyd has made but reminds him that the town relies on him more than ever. He advises Boyd not to let the death of someone close be in vain. Victor tells Ethan he used to think the boy in white was just in his imagination. He remembers seeing him as a kid when 2 cars drove into town. Ethan, curious, asks Victor how he ended up there. Victor's unfriendly attitude leads Ethan to open up about losing his brother, Thomas.
You've been here a pretty long time, huh?
I've been here the longest.
When they see the boy in white, they decide to follow him silently. Meanwhile, Tabitha goes inside to cool off and is soon joined by an upset Jim. Tabitha, feeling overwhelmed, decides to take Ethan to see Julie. As they leave through the back door, they find Ethan's crutch lying there. Ethan and Victor reach a mysterious tree, the faraway tree, where the boy in white seems to disappear. Victor draws a smiley face on a rock and shows Ethan how the tree works. He drops the rock into the tree, and it falls from the sky behind them, still with the smiley face. Victor explains that the tree can transport people too, but where they end up is unpredictable. Tabitha and Jim, worried, are looking for Ethan in the woods when they hear a German shepherd barking. Victor shoots his gun into the air to scare the dog away. And soon after, Ethan and his parents are reunited. Jim, angry, confronts Victor for not staying away from Ethan. Victor apologizes, assuring them he means no harm to Ethan. As Tabitha tries to calm Jim down, Victor rushes off to the colony house to find a specific sketch. He experiences hallucinations about his youth in a town filled with corpses, the boy in white, and a German shepherd. Jim later talks to Boyd about Victor. Boyd suggests speaking to Donna, who has more influence over the colony home residents. Jim shows Boyd the sketch of the boy in white. Boyd agrees to talk to Donna to ensure this doesn't happen again and invites Jim and his family to dinner. Meanwhile, Fatima and Julie become closer, and Ellis offers her a private sleeping area with curtains for privacy. Boyd hosts a nice dinner for Jim's family, and he mentions he'll talk to Ellis about keeping an eye on Julie. Tabitha thanks him, and he replies that in their community, everyone looks after each other like a big family. Ethan gets invited by Sarah to help serve the food, and when the radio suddenly turns on, Boyd casually mentions that it happens sometimes. Meanwhile, Kenny takes Boyd aside for another job they need to do. During the meal, Jim and Tabitha reminisce about a summer they spent in Texas. Jim admits he sometimes struggles with his feelings, but Tabitha reassures him that they'll figure things out together. Suddenly, Sarah is in pain, holding her arm. It turns out her arm has parasites that communicate with her through mysterious messages. One of these messages shockingly tells her to kill the boy. When she looks at Ethan and then back at her arm, the message is gone. Overwhelmed, she collapses. Boyd and Kenny immediately come to Sarah's aid. In another part of the house, someone is seen digging frantically outside. When Donna asks what he's doing, he initially says he's just trying to get a head start, but then he realizes he has accidentally dug 4 graves.
I was just trying to get a head start this time.
The episode starts with a local informing Nathan that his sister, Sarah Myers, is having trouble at the medical clinic. Sarah doesn't want to stay there overnight. Christy, trying to help, suggests she might tell Nathan that Sarah is resting. But when Boyd Stevens enters through a back door and asks about Sarah, Christy says she's fine without needing an MRI. Boyd wonders if someone could have a physical reaction to their unusual town. Christy hesitates but admits it's possible and even mentions Boyd's trembling hand, offering to arrange a checkup for him. As Nathan gets closer, Christy tells him Sarah doesn't want to see him. Boyd adds that Christy thinks Sarah should stay overnight for monitoring, but it's important not to stress her further. He wonders if there's another reason behind Sarah's distant behavior. Nathan seems to accept this reluctantly. Meanwhile, Jim and Tabitha Matthews are talking about Sarah's situation. Jim tries to comfort their son Ethan, telling him that Sarah is getting care from the same person. To distract Ethan, Jim suggests playing a game and writes "Where are we" on a wall, which surprises Ethan. Later, Nathan finds Sarah's bloodied dress on their dining table. Sarah is rummaging through drawers and stumbles upon medical tools that bring back memories of past events, including a seizure she had. Christy, noticing Sarah's distraction, offers her some tea and they start chatting about personal matters. Sarah curiously asks about Christy's love life, particularly about her complicated relationship with Kenny. Christy opens up, mentioning her connection with Mari, another girl. Sarah reflects on how Nathan helped her escape a toxic relationship and wonders if Christy would consider doing something risky to reunite with Mari. Christy admits she would do almost anything to be with Mari again, as long as it meant others could return home safely. Meanwhile, Jim is deep in thought about the enigmatic questions written on the wall. Tabitha points out that these questions have been asked repeatedly without any new answers. She hints at a crucial question that hasn't been asked yet. Sarah's conversation is cut short when Nathan arrives. He bombards her with questions, but she avoids answering by saying she needs to go to work. In another part of the town, Julie Matthews is making a list of people who might realize her family is missing. Fatima sees this and tells Julie that many others have made similar lists. When Fatima asks who's on Julie's list, she's just about to leave, but Fatima invites her to join in some fun and mentions introducing her to the Brundles.
Boyfriend? No. Girlfriend? No.
Jade's odd behavior persists as he roams around the town. He bumps into Trudy near a gas station, who flirts with him in a peculiar way. She playfully remarks that she would have been very forward with him if he hadn't settled in the town, using a quirky metaphor involving an alabaster dragon. Boyd is looking at a map when Kenny comes by with his favorite snacks. Kenny stays with him as Boyd plans to visit his wife's grave. Meanwhile, Jade finds a bar set up by the locals. He's surprised to see everyone so relaxed. Tom serves him a homemade vodka and they start talking about complex theories like Schrodinger's cat. Tom reveals he used to teach philosophy. Sarah, who's got a hidden scalpel, doesn't seem interested in going to her job. Tabitha, while changing Ethan's bandage, wonders if the town has some sort of healing power. Ethan jokingly suggests they should write down their questions on a wall. Sarah comes by, and Ethan wants to go on a merry-go-round ride. Nathan finds the church empty and Father Khatri missing. In a different part of the town, Ellis, Fatima, and Julie decide to go swimming. Julie can't understand how Fatima remains hopeful amidst everything. Fatima shares a bit about her tough childhood and how she saw her father being taken away from their home.
I remember my mother told me to hide.
Jim is deep in thought, looking at a wall filled with questions. Tabitha watches Ethan and Sarah enjoying the merry-go-round, and when Sarah tries to take Ethan somewhere, Tabitha decides to join them. Boyd is at his wife Abby's grave, talking about his health concerns and fears. He wonders if he should try to leave the town, but he's scared of the risks. He wishes for a sign to guide him. Near the parish, Father Khatri is outside enjoying the weather. Nathan comes up to him, curious about the rules of confession and whether it would be kept confidential. Father Khatri assures him that confessions are always private. At the farm, Sarah shows Ethan and Tabitha the animals, like chickens and goats, and tells them they'll get used to living there. She talks about a secret spot in the barn and wonders about the town before the protective charm. Father Khatri scolds Nathan for keeping secrets, mainly to protect Sarah. He agrees to keep it quiet but emphasizes the need to keep everyone safe. Then, Sarah leads Tabitha to a hidden room and locks her in, apologizing for something about to happen. Boyd asks the bartender about interpreting a certain sign. The bartender mentions Sarah taking Tabitha and Ethan to the farm.
Start heading towards the barn with that Matthews lady and her boy.
Ethan gets worried when Sarah comes out of the barn alone and apologizes again. When he tries to run, she grabs him. In a sudden turn, she accidentally cuts Nathan's throat with a scalpel. Ethan manages to escape after kicking her. While she tries to help Nathan, Father Khatri shows up. Ethan runs into Ellis, Julie, and Fatima in the woods, where Julie tries to calm her brother. Meanwhile, Jim is rushing to the farm, and Tabitha, trapped, screams for help. The Matthews family eventually gets back together, but Father Khatri and Sarah have disappeared. Christy tries to help Nathan, but it's too late. An angry Jim confronts Boyd and Father Khatri, criticizing the town and its seemingly perfect image. Back at the Matthews house, Tabitha asks Julie to take Ethan upstairs. She writes a message on the wall, questioning if they survived the crash.
Ask every question, right?
That's right.
Christy feels guilty about Nathan's death, but Boyd reassures her, reminding her of the lives she's saved. Suddenly, a radio turns on, playing Lyle Lovett's song If I Had a Boat, which Boyd takes as a sign from his wife, reinforcing his plan to escape. This episode of From brings back the suspense that might have been missing in previous episodes. The show focuses on a few storylines, some of which are unexpected and really engaging. The episode starts with Sheriff Boyd and his assistant Kenny handling the burial of Nathan. During this somber moment, Father Khatri gives a moving talk about faith and life. Meanwhile, Tabitha Matthews hands over some important documents to the priest that belonged to the previous occupants of their house. In a shocking scene, Sarah Myers is found bound and gagged in the church's basement. Boyd and Kenny, while finishing up the grave, talk about Sarah's mysterious vanishing. Hyun Chen Lu is deeply troubled by Sarah's disappearance, as she sees her almost like a daughter. Boyd reflects on the changes happening in the town and, after spending a night in the woods with the Matthews family, suggests they venture deeper into the forest. Kenny, visibly uneasy with Boyd's ideas, leaves abruptly. At the Matthews house, Tabitha asks Jim what's on his mind. Jim shares his thoughts about the house's unusual electrical wiring, which seems to be missing a crucial component. Suddenly, Jade arrives with supplies but his entrance without knocking annoys Jim. Jade makes a sarcastic remark about the town's odd electrical setup. Tabitha can't hide her disdain for Jade, who nearly caused her family harm, but Jade counters by mentioning the loss of his best friend. In a disturbing twist, Sarah overhears Father Khatri expressing frustration about the town lacking a Bible. He then removes her gag and talks about the voices she hears, suggesting she use her gift for good, as Nathan would have wanted. In a lighter moment, Fatima praises Julie Matthews for her flower arrangement skills, but Julie reveals she simply found the flowers and put them in a vase. Ethan and Tabitha, while exploring, come across a collection of bizarre items. Ethan compares the place to a cave from a story called Kromanakal, where a dragon lives. Tabitha finds a handmade bracelet, adding to the episode's intrigue. Jim and Jade are in the forest, looking for the biggest tree to help them communicate with the outside world. They talk about their abilities, and Jade confesses he gets dizzy up high.
Huh? Wait, no, what? Hey, what? I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry.
Meanwhile, Christy Boyd is drawn to the spot where Mr. Liu was killed, and she ends up discussing Kenny with Boyd. She thinks Kenny could use a father figure and talks about Boyd's past mistakes with his son, Ellis. To keep the crime scene hidden, she closes the door. Father Khatri shares some insights about the Bible with Sarah, explaining that it's a collection of 73 books, not just one. He muses that their town and its stories might be like a 74th book, one that's still being written. Tabitha is distracted by a handmade bracelet when Ethan asks about Jim's return. Their conversation is interrupted by a flickering lamp. Tabitha investigates and ends up making a hole in the wall with a hammer to check the electrical outlet. In the forest, Jim is climbing the large tree, cheered on by Jade, but he starts seeing things. He imagines a symbol carved into the tree and sees visions of corpses and blood. He then runs into a ghostly Civil War soldier and is chased until he snaps back to reality. Jade mysteriously leaves without saying why. Sarah tells Father Khatri about voices she heard, and he realizes these voices have been around longer than the townspeople. He thinks the voices are waiting for someone to listen to them. Sarah writes in pain, asking for paper to record the voice's message. At the same time, Jade is drawing his vision. Fionn brings him tea and notices his sketches, which match a symbol in a journal she finds in storage. Sarah writes down something for Father Khatri, suggesting the voices know about something he buried when he first came to town. Boyd finds Kenny crafting chess pieces. Boyd shares a bit of his past, mentioning how he almost made it big in baseball during his college days. He then opens up about his Parkinson's disease, something his father also had. Boyd worries about his ability to protect the town, especially as his condition worsens. He hopes everyone is safe at home before his symptoms become more severe.
Are we doing this or what?
Doing it.
Jim is surprised to see several walls in his house stripped down to the framework. Ethan is busy moving dirt from the basement. Tabitha wonders if Ethan and Jade had any success tuning into the radio. Ethan mentions catching a weak signal. Tabitha then notices that the house's electrical wires run under the concrete floor of the basement. She shares a personal memory with Jim, telling him about a handmade bracelet she crafted from his father's bootlaces when they started dating. This bracelet went missing around the time Julie was born, prompting Jim to grab a shovel and start digging. Elsewhere, in the woods, Father Khatri is concerned about keeping a bag from his past hidden. He digs a bit and finds the bag, which contains a shirt stained with dried blood. Boyd and Kenny, back in town, play catch with a baseball, and Kenny wishes Boyd luck for an upcoming trip. Kevin has an unusual encounter in the bathroom with an attractive creature holding a flower arrangement. She thanks him for the flowers and curiously asks about an entrance. In the 7th episode, the longtime residents of Colony Home are decorating for Fatima's anniversary party. Ellis Stevens, with a flask in hand, admires the Congratulations Fatima banner in the entrance hall. Meanwhile, Fatima chats with Julie Matthews about the oddity of celebrating the day she arrived. Fatima points out it's more about celebrating survival, and she shows Julie a hidden collection of clothes. Julie comments on Fatima's distinct characteristics, and Fatima responds by saying everyone has their own special qualities. She then sends Ellis to look for Victor, hinting that anniversaries can also remind us of what we've lost. Ellis tries to get Victor to join the early festivities, but Victor's not interested, upset about the lack of peaches in the pantry. However, it turns out there's a secret supply of fruit cocktails and cranberries stashed away in the basement. Elsewhere, Kevin places another bunch of flowers on the porch before getting distracted. Boyd Stevens makes his final round through the town, ringing his warning bell. Tabitha Stevens reads a bedtime story about the Kromanakal to Ethan Stephen, lulling him to sleep before drawing the shades. Kenny Lou reminds Jade about his dinner responsibilities, but Jade, lacking paper, wonders if he should draw on the walls instead. Boyd meets Father Khatri at the police station, where his travel gear catches Khatri's eye. In another part of town, Jim Matthews is finishing up his radio tower design. He and Tabitha discuss Ethan's bedtime and joke about child labor laws. Tabitha confesses her fear of leaving the kids alone, but Jim reassures her they've taken safety measures. They hope Donna is watching over Julie at the colony house.
Hey.
At the party, Julie and Fatima enjoy a song and dance together. An intoxicated Ellis wanders through the crowd, and Fatima advises him to slow down. Donna delivers a short speech, praising Fatima's wisdom and kindness, and even joking about her talent in growing marijuana. Donna then presents Fatima with a handmade dream catcher as a gift, and Stacy joins in to wish Fatima a happy anniversary. Boyd is talking to Father Khatri, trying to figure out a way to avoid a crisis. Father Khatri shares a story from his past. He recalls a young boy in his church who loved contributing to the collection. One day, he found the boy upset outside the church. Father Khatri lured the boy away with a candy bar. Later, he visited the boy's home and discovered a tragic scene. The boy's mother was distraught, his father was drunk, and the boy was dead with a broken neck. Father Khatri confesses that he attacked the father in a rage. Afterwards, he found himself on a bridge, drunk, when he felt a divine voice guiding him to drive, leading him to the path to this town. Boyd is shocked and wants to know why Father Khatri is telling him this story now. Father Khatri reveals that Sarah Myers is being held in the parish basement. Meanwhile, Kenny encounters Jasmine, who is upset and holding a bouquet. She's sad because Kenny wouldn't let her inside and threatens to never come back. Kenny tries to comfort her, saying it's lonelier outside. He stops her from leaving and convinces her to promise not to let anyone else inside. She agrees, and Kenny uses a crowbar to pry out some nails. Ellis is getting annoyed with Dale, who's busy telling Stacy about his complex theories involving string theories and other universes. Ellis thinks these theories are nonsense. When Dale suggests another round of drinks, Ellis angrily knocks Dale's drink out of his hand. Fatima steps in to calm things down, but Dale escalates the situation, threatening to cause a scene. Donna quickly stops the argument. Ellis feels bad and tells Fatima to go back and enjoy the party. Dale, still upset, insults Ellis, leading Donna to punch him, sending him to the ground. Meanwhile, in the bathroom, Jasmine and Kevin share a moment before Jasmine suddenly turns on him. Elsewhere, Fatima meets Trudy, who is feeling down but doesn't want anyone's pity. Fatima tries to cheer her up by giving her a sweater, and Trudy promises to repay the kindness someday. Julie is impressed by Fatima's gesture and awkwardly asks if she can kiss her. Anticipating rejection, Julie runs away, embarrassed. Father Khatri reveals a significant discovery about Sarah's candy bar sketch. He confesses to hiding the bag years ago, long before Sarah's family arrived in town. He suspects that something has been observing him and is now communicating through Sarah. Boyd finds it hard to believe that a mysterious entity would communicate such violent instructions. Father Khatri, convinced of a connection, asks to join Boyd and Sarah on their upcoming journey. Tabitha is determined to uncover the truth about the strange happenings, even though she's hurting. Jim sees her discomfort and offers to take over while she rests with Ethan. In the bathroom, Jasmine is trying to clean up after her encounter with Kevin and notices strange creatures approaching from the woods. Victor is looking through his drawings when Julie comes in to ask about the graves he mentioned earlier. Victor doesn't want her in his room and tries to dismiss her, but Julie brings up his earlier mention of 2 vehicles arriving in town simultaneously. Kenny is growing impatient with Jade's fixation on the journal. Jade discovers a hidden photo in the journal, showing a potential author, Tian, with a young Victor in the background. Trudy is saying goodbye to her favorite pillow, giving it to Fatima, when she runs into an overly excited Jasmine. Suddenly, the frightening smiley face creature appears, trapping Trudy. Terrified, Trudy wonders how the creature seems to know everyone in the house. Dale, feeling underappreciated, is distracted by blood droplets and looks up to see the smiley face creature on the upper floor. Panic ensues among the residents, waking Ellis, who had been asleep. The creatures start coming down from the upper level, causing chaos. Fatima tries to reach Ellis but can't get through the commotion. The noise grabs the attention of Victor and Julie. Victor quickly throws a rope out the window, urging Julie to climb down first. She doesn't forget to grab her lunchbox on her way out. Donna is leading others to a van, making sure everyone sticks with their partner. When Fatima gets there, she urges Donna to drive off. After a moment's hesitation, Donna agrees. Julie and Victor make it to the ground, and while planning their next move, Victor notices the boy in white. He suggests the faraway tree is their best route to escape. Ellis, mistaking Trudy for Fatima, turns her over and realizes his error. As the smiley face creature closes in, Ellis throws a TV out the window and jumps out, landing on the porch roof. He then makes his way down and finds Fatima. As the creatures get closer, Fatima helps Ellis stand up and they both rush into the house foyer. There, Fatima places a talisman, hoping it will protect them from the looming danger. Victor, trying to escape through the woods, brings Julie to a mysterious faraway tree and quickly ushers her inside for safety. Meanwhile, Boyd and Father Khatri are busy sorting out the last details of their trip. Boyd shares his doubts about Sarah and vows to take action if she poses any threat. At the same time, Donna and some other town residents arrive at the police station. They rush to assist those inside, but they're met with a shocking scene. Father Khatri has been gravely injured, his throat cut. Boyd catches him just as he's about to fall and shoots twice at the attacking creature. In the police station, Boyd tries desperately to save Father Khatri, pressing on his wound and reciting the Lord's Prayer in a tense, emotional moment. Despite his efforts, Father Khatri passes away as the episode reaches its dramatic conclusion. Covered in Father Khatri's blood, Sheriff Boyd Stevens is busy packing for a trip. His deputy, Kenny Lou, tells him that some people from Colony House have moved into town. Kenny thinks a heartfelt speech might calm everyone down. Boyd agrees but reminds Kenny to mention Father Khatri's help when they first arrive. As Kenny leaves, he's worried about Boyd focusing more on his trip than the town's safety. Boyd reminds Kenny that he'll soon be in charge as sheriff.
He saved my life, you know that? Father Khatri, the night we got into town. He risked his own life to make sure that...
Meanwhile, Sarah Myers is nervously waiting for Boyd, who is in a hurry to leave. In a memory, Boyd, his wife Abby, and their young son Ellis are listening to Lyle Lovett's song If I Had a Boat. Boyd daydreams about how peaceful it would be to ride a pony across the ocean. Abby brings him back to reality, pointing out their financial struggles. Boyd tries to reassure her they'll manage, but Ellis doubts their plan will convince lenders. Boyd tells Ellis he doesn't need to worry about it, mentioning that his army friends called him Mr. Fish and loves for his knack for making the best of situations. When Ellis asks about Abby's nickname, Irony Abby, Boyd explains that sometimes being too rigid isn't helpful. He playfully suggests a boat might solve their money problems. Abby, looking for chapstick in her purse, hands Boyd something. It's a boat key. Boyd is so surprised by this that he almost doesn't notice a fallen tree on the road, but Ellis's quick warning saves them from a crash. In the present, Sarah is in the forest with Boyd, questioning Father Khatri's whereabouts. Boyd, sidestepping her question, talks about how the creatures in the forest used to scream all night until they found talismans, which quieted them down to whispers. He comments, somewhat bitterly, that these voices haven't been much help. Sarah insists on knowing where Father Khatri is, and Boyd finally tells her that he has died. Sarah is devastated, and Boyd confronts her about her past actions, questioning her morality. He points his gun at her, urging her to keep moving. Meanwhile, Jade is looking over his recent discovery. Kenny is busy giving a tour of the house to 3 residents, emphasizing the need to conserve their limited food supply. Jade, after a cryptic conversation, hints at a deeper understanding of the situation, comparing their predicament to an escape room and questioning the choices they've made. Julie shares with her family, Jim, Tabitha, and Ethan, the strange events she experienced at the Colony House. Tabitha tries to comfort her, but Julie is confused and scared, talking about being transported from a tree to a cellar. Ethan excitedly mentions a story about the faraway tree and suggests they look for Victor. Tabitha reassures Julie, while Ethan talks about a mysterious hole in the basement that they need to investigate. Suddenly, Jade barges into the house unannounced. Jim wants him to leave but not before Jade shares his findings from the journal and his hallucinations. When he shows a photo, Jim, frustrated and protective of his family, knocks the photo away and sternly tells Jade to stay away from them. Jim belittles someone by reminding them of a past breakdown involving a Civil War soldier. He's been working on a radio signal and thinks that with enough height and power, he might get better results. When Jade questions how they plan to get above the tree line, Jim mentions his hope to reach higher ground.
All I got was some static. But it worked.
In a flashback, Boyd, young Ellis, and Abby find themselves in a strange town with help scrawled on the buildings. As night falls, Father Khatri suddenly appears in front of their vehicle, urgently explaining the town's dangers and the lethal creatures that roam it. He insists they must follow him to survive. Abby, skeptical, points her gun at him, but Khatri urges them to move quickly despite her distrust. Boyd decides to follow Khatri, especially after hearing terrifying shrieks nearby. They head to a place where Donna and Dale are already safe. Donna reassures them that the only real threats are the creatures outside. Father Khatri promises to give more details, but then they're all distracted by strange sounds from above. Fatima observes Christy fixing Ellis's shoulder and putting it in a makeshift sling. Christy asks Fatima to ensure Ellis stays in bed to recover. Jim and Jade discuss their plans with Donna, talking about strengthening their radio signal. Jim believes that broadcasting from the Colony House, the highest point around, will help them get the signal over the thick forest. Donna, surprisingly, agrees to their plan. Jim is shocked by her approval, but Donna explains that after a recent disastrous event that left many of her people hurt, the house is hardly being used and could be helpful for their purpose. In another scene, Boyd takes Sarah to a small shack, telling her he has things to do in town. Despite his intention to handcuff her, Sarah assures him that it's not necessary, as she only wants to assist. Boyd is shocked when he first sees the aftermath of an attack on the town. He finds people wandering in confusion, trying to recognize family members who didn't survive. Abby's voice snaps him out of his daze. He's surprised to learn that the townspeople have to hide every night and just hope for the best. Father Khatri tells him this is their only way to survive. Both he and Donna admit they don't know much about the town's mysteries. Boyd thinks they should try to get everyone to work together. Donna is skeptical, saying it's not that simple, but Boyd suggests they pool their resources and make sure no one hides in the same place twice. They start working on this new strategy.
Abby is going to be drawing up a system for where we spend the nights.
Elsewhere, Tabitha checks if Julie is hungry, but Julie is more curious about her parents' divorce. Tabitha struggles to give a straightforward answer. Julie wonders if she's the reason for their problems, but Tabitha quickly reassures her that it has nothing to do with her. She explains that it's hard to understand until you're a parent yourself. Tabitha then shares a painful memory about Thomas, their child who passed away. She recounts how Thomas fell off the changing table while she was grabbing a diaper and Jim was answering the phone. Now, whenever she looks at Jim, she's haunted by the memory of the ringing phone, feeling like she failed as a parent. At the local diner, Tian Chen Lu is trying to keep Tom and Eli from entering. Boyd steps in and finds out that Tom and Eli are worried about people from Colony House taking all the town's limited supplies. Boyd calms them down, assuring that no one will be raiding supplies. Eli is skeptical, pointing out that the creatures once got into the Colony House despite precautions. Boyd manages to persuade them to back down, while Tian observes that they're just frightened. In a flashback, Boyd shares more about himself with Father Khatri. He talks about using the daytime, when the creatures are inactive, to scout for resources. Father Khatri is concerned about convincing others to venture out. Boyd mentions his 30 years in the army, contrasting with his wife Abby, who he describes as the real badass of the family due to her Marine background. Meanwhile, Abby is using her time to observe and learn more about the town. Her quiet observation is interrupted by Ellis, who is sent to help his dad. Boyd and Kenny are discussing a recent troubling incident at the Colony House. Donna joins them, and Kenny brings up Boyd's earlier comments about him being ready to lead in Boyd's absence. Kenny is skeptical about the effectiveness of their talismans and fears they might end up trapped like Father Khatri if they don't find a way out. Donna inquires about Boyd's travel plans.
And if we're not gonna fight like hell to go home, then we might as well swallow a fucking bullet right now.
Another flashback shows Boyd leading the town's first animal, a goat, and meeting Father Khatri. He talks about setting traps and suggests getting help to reinforce the corral around an old barn. Young Ellis expresses his concern about Boyd going into the woods, but Boyd admits he's also scared. However, he emphasizes the necessity of gathering resources. Ellis is worried about Abby, but Boyd reassures him, mentioning Abby's nickname Iron Abby, and agrees to talk more about it later. In a spooky forest scene, Boyd comes across a wandering German shepherd. He tries to get the dog to come to him, but it runs away. Boyd chases after the dog but ends up lost in the dark, scary woods. He hears eerie sounds and keeps his gun ready, just in case. He stumbles upon a cave and inside, he encounters a strange creature that just walks past him. Boyd thinks his good fortune is due to an old charm on the cave wall, covered in mysterious symbols that look like ancient writing. He finds more of these charms around the cave. Back in the present, Boyd shares his travel plans with Ellis. Ellis criticizes these plans as just wandering around without purpose, reminding Boyd of how badly it went last time. Boyd responds that Ellis can dislike him all he wants, but he's going to speak his mind. He warns Ellis that he might not come back from this trip and doesn't want to leave things unsaid. He confesses that he's proud of how Ellis has turned out. Donna later reassures Boyd that Ellis will eventually understand. She thanks Boyd for everything he's done for their community. Fatima talks to Ellis, trying to comfort him. She tells him that whatever happened isn't his fault and mentions that she knows Boyd well enough to understand his intentions. Fatima believes that while Ellis is angry, it's Boyd who's been carrying the heavy load all this time. In a flashback, Boyd survived a night in the woods with the talismans. When he returned to town, people were in a panic. Abby was in a strange state, surrounded by lifeless bodies. Donna was trying to help an injured person. Abby tried to convince herself it was just a bad dream, but Boyd tried to reason with her. She broke into song, singing Lyle Lovett's If I Had a Boat, and told Boyd to snap out of it. Ellis got her attention, but Boyd shot her twice. Not far from a shack, Boyd noticed that Ellis had followed him from town. Ellis explained that the talisman had saved him and Fatima during a dangerous encounter. Boyd embraced him as he cried. Ellis couldn't let Boyd leave without saying goodbye, but Boyd assured him it wasn't goodbye. Sarah emerged from the shack, and Boyd promised to tell Ellis everything when he returned. For now, he needed Ellis to trust him, and Ellis headed back to town.
Right now, I just need you to trust me, okay? Okay, no one can know she's with me.
Kenny explained his plan to the residents, suggesting that if Boyd could risk his life, they could cooperate. He wanted to merge the Colony House and town factions into one community. Donna reassured them that the Colony House would be rebuilt and informed them about Jim's radio tower. Jim emphasized that the sooner they erected it, the sooner they might go home. The residents brought supplies and tools to the Colony House, and Boyd handcuffed Sarah. Boyd Stevens and a restrained Sarah Myers carefully moved through a large, enigmatic forest. Sarah keeps asking where they're going, which irritates Boyd because he feels like she's doubting his direction. They reach the place where Boyd found some important objects, and he suggests setting up camp there. He confesses he's never gone deeper into the forest and doesn't want to risk it, especially since it's almost night. Deputy Kenny Lu shares with Tian Chen Lu his plan to split the locals into 3 teams. One will build a radio tower, and the others will handle the radio and power. He mentions Jade working solo and expresses worry about Jade's fixation on a certain symbol. He also says Jim Matthews has threatened Jade's life, and Victor is nowhere to be found. Hyun Chen describes Victor as lazy and selfish, just as Christy arrives to return a book they were sharing. Donna appreciates the colony home team for their effort and notices Eric looking upset. He jokes it's due to his genes, but she suggests a good sleep might fix it. Dale makes a sarcastic remark about leaving after the radio tower miraculously connects them to Neverland. Donna emphasizes the importance of positive morale. Before leaving, she updates the nights without incident tally. Meanwhile, Tabitha Matthews is busy moving dirt from her basement. Jim offers her food from the kitchen, and she responds she'll be there soon. As she climbs up, she daydreams about being in town, but then she finds Jim's body hanging in an alarming way. She's scared by Jim's loud noises until she realizes she's in her bed and Jim and Ethan Matthews are peacefully asleep. Donna, remembering Eric's tower jokes, is shocked to find his body hanging. Kenny updates Jim about their current work. Jade is busy cooking. Jim, looking satisfied, tells Kenny they need more wood to build a tower tall enough to rise above the thick forest. Kenny thinks they should ask others to help get wood from the barn. Donna grumbles about having a tough morning and mentions that Eric can't help out today.
How you doing?
Had a rough morning.
Ellis Stevens offers to help Fatima, who is relieved to take a break from her task. They talk about Eric and the tower they're building. Fatima is worried it might not work. Ellis shares a story about Boyd, who felt like he came back from a different world after serving in Afghanistan. He reflects on how hard it is to tell if people or situations change more. Fatima wonders how things will be different when they return home. Sarah and Boyd are making their way through the forest. Boyd marks their path with arrows on trees. They discuss a theory, but Boyd admits he's not sure about it and vows to learn more. Sarah is hesitant to talk about why she almost hurt two people, Ethan and Bin Qian Lu, but eventually reveals she was threatened by voices in her head. They claimed they would harm Nathan Myers and warned of danger involving two vehicles. Boyd reassures her, suggesting that the town has a way of driving good people to do bad things. In Ethan and Julie's house, they're looking at Victor's drawings on the table. Ethan thinks these drawings tell a story about their next adventure. Tabitha worries it's too much for a young boy. Julie quickly talks about Jim's tower instead. Ethan keeps arranging the drawings. Tabitha suggests a game where they talk about what they'll do when they get home. She wants to order a lot from Giovelli's, and Julie plans to call her friend. Ethan hopes they'll still be happy when they're back. Jim and Jade are worried about the town's battery problem. The good ones might die soon. Jim thinks using cars could help keep them charged. Jade wonders about a special symbol, but Jim wants him to focus on the tower and not on irrelevant things. Jade mentions the town isn't like Gilligan's Island. Donna's trying to relax, but Kenny interrupts her. She likes that Boyd doesn't bother her and asks Kenny if he'll be nosy if he becomes sheriff. He says he's there to support her. He mentions collecting wood from the barn. Donna gets an axe from the basement. Jim and Kenny try to calm her down when she gets worked up chopping wood. She stops when she realizes she's drawing attention and assures them she's not crazy. She just thinks the axe is better for wood than a rotten barn. In the forest, Sarah talks about Boyd's wife. She thinks both Boyd and Nathan like helping people, but Nathan was tougher. Sarah feels Nathan wouldn't have liked their current actions, worrying that being too pushy could cause problems. Suddenly, they hear a sound like wind chimes. They find a tree with bottles hanging from it. When Sarah is overwhelmed with pain, she uses a stick to knock down a bottle and then falls to the ground, seeming to have a seizure.
Ow! Sarah. No! Hey.
Tom questions Donna about a tower. Ignoring his query, she comments on it being her first time at the bar and criticizes his brewing skills. She's there for some quiet. When Kenny mentions Eric's death, she speaks highly of how Eric chose his own path. They touch on the tower topic. Donna reminds Tom that not everyone wins in real life, unlike in school. She thinks Tom doesn't understand life before Boyd and a talisman, saying the town was better off before everyone got obsessed with a man they call Mr. Wizard. She worries about the future if their plans fail. Tom wonders if doing nothing as dangers lurk is better. Donna points out that at least those dangers are honest about what they are. She's sad about losing the sense of togetherness at the colony house but promises to be ready to act again soon. Ellis tells Jim about Donna's angry words. After some small talk, Jim mentions he needs to return to work. Ellis updates him on the progress with some technical parts, but Jim feels not much was achieved today, which he says is normal in engineering. Kenny meets Christy looking sad outside the police station. She shares that her bond with Eric got stronger recently, but his celiac disease has caused a lot of hospital trips due to swelling and dehydration. Christy mentions Eric wouldn't stop eating carbs. Eric helped her get used to living in the town. She's worried about the big tower causing problems if it doesn't work. Kenny assures her he won't make any sudden moves. They share a brief hug and then split up. Hyun and Jade are finishing up making dinner, and Tian confesses he struggles to understand people. He feels stressed when people expect him to have answers to impossible questions. He admits he finds his own intelligence overwhelming. Jade is tired of hearing him complain. She playfully asks if the power outage is bothering him as she switches the light on and off. She comforts him, saying the power issue is too big for just one person to fix. Julie has a serious talk with Jim about the tower project. She acknowledges that things aren't going smoothly. Jim is skeptical about her newfound hope and thinks it might be related to Ethan's remark that their move to the town was destined. Julie urges him to stop working on the tower and focus on fixing the hole instead. They grab a bucket and hurry to the basement when the hallway light starts to flicker.
If you climb up high enough, even a nightmare can look like a dream.
It's now completely dark in the forest, and Sarah and Boyd settle down for the night in their rough camp. Sarah wonders where they are, mentioning Boyd's worry about her possibly not waking up. Boyd tells her he found 1864 written on a piece of paper inside a bottle, and it seems each bottle has a similar note. Sarah recalls a voice from earlier, during an attack, telling her they need to return and to inform Mr. Fish and Loves that she made a mistake. Suddenly, something starts attacking their tent. Elsewhere, Ethan chats with Jim while pulling up a bucket of dirt using a makeshift pulley. Surrounded by scarecrows, spiders, and imaginary monsters, Ethan thinks they're on some kind of adventure, especially when Tabitha's shovel hits something hard. Back in the forest, after a tense moment, Boyd realizes the talisman has fallen off. He quickly finds and reattaches it to the rope in the middle of the tent. Sarah expresses regret about coming to this place. Then, something inside the tent starts glowing and fading, similar to a lighthouse light. In the last episode of the first season, we see Ethan Matthews playing with finger puppets. Julie Matthews offers to tell him a story, but he's confident he can make up his own. When Jade comes in with a hairdryer, Ethan starts talking about Jim Matthews' least favorite lamp and how he thinks he's figured out their energy issues. He takes apart a lamp, pointing out that the sockets aren't working and the wires don't have copper in them, yet there's still some electricity. Ethan shows this by tinkering with the lamp, suggesting they can still light up the bulbs. He notes that someone brought the hairdryer to town, so it must have copper in it. Ethan connects the hairdryer to the lamp, and it lights up, proving his point. Jim starts thinking they could turn the colony house into a big battery. Meanwhile, Boyd Stephen is looking at a boat key, while Sarah is observing an earthworm. She wonders if the animals realize they're stuck in this strange, nightmarish place. Boyd mentions that cutting a worm in half doesn't kill it, but makes two separate worms. Sarah is curious about what moved their tent. When Boyd steps outside, he sees the forest is covered in a substance that looks like spider webs. Jade emphasizes how crucial copper wires are. He explains that if they can gather enough wire to connect the lamps to the tower on the colony house roof, they might be able to activate the antenna. Jim points out the need to use the electrical wires from various appliances and gadgets in the town. He's hopeful they can send a signal out before it gets dark. As Jade gets ready to leave on his bike, Julie reminds him that her dad's name isn't Mr. Teacup but Jim. Jade acknowledges he knows the real name, but their argument is cut short when Jim tells Julie to go back to the diner. Jade mockingly praises her for confronting her dad, and she insists he drop the Teacup nickname. He agrees, but only if he can call Julie Sparkplug. Meanwhile, Donna is engrossed in studying the map of new arrivals when Kenny Lou tells her about Jade's plan. She wonders about the chances of people arriving in town from various places and questions if a radio signal can change anything. Kenny explains how radio waves move differently than people, and they chat briefly before parting ways. Christy is collecting electrical parts when Kenny comes by. He shares a story about his old lamp from college, which doesn't work but has sentimental value, including a secret compartment. He shows her a receipt inside it, listing places he wants to visit when he gets back home. Christy mentions her dream of visiting Iceland, and Kenny suggests they go together. She admits she likes him but has someone waiting for her back home. Understanding, Kenny takes some wiring to the colony house. Tom, a bartender, leads Tabitha Matthews to a shed to look for some electrical parts. She's curious why he's not at the colony home with everyone else. Tom wonders if she's interested in why he doesn't care about the magical tower. He tells her that he's used to smart people and their failed escape plans, which always end up at his bar. Meanwhile, Fatima is busy with electrical wires and ignoring Ellis. Eventually, Ellis gets her to join him in the greenhouse for a private chat. He reminds her of their first meeting there. She reminisces about driving her Volkswagen Bug, then questions what they're doing. He confesses that he can't remember his life before meeting her and that she's his true love. She kneels and declares her love for him too. Since all jewelry stores are closed, he jokingly offers her a fancy wire from his pocket, and they both laugh about its origin. Boyd and Sarah are navigating a forest filled with spider webs. She's unsure about where they're heading, but Boyd suggests following a light. He doesn't recall what Sarah told him the previous night and proposes heading towards a searchlight that seems important. Sarah fears something dangerous might be near the light and questions who Mr. Fish and Loves is. Boyd reveals it's a nickname from his military days and wonders if his wife, Abby, has contacted her. They then hear someone crying for help and find a clearing with a large, web-covered tree. Abby is at the base, wrapped in a cocoon. Boyd is startled when Abby suddenly grabs him. As he tries to free her, spiders swarm out of a hive. Sarah asks what he's found, but he doesn't answer. Meanwhile, Jim, Ethan, and Julie are distributing supplies to volunteers. Ethan wonders how they'll get the supplies to the rooftop, and Jim explains the basic hoisting method. Ethan ponders what Sarah would think of this, and Julie goes inside to help. Ethan thinks it would be great if Victor were there, and Jim reassures him that Victor is fine wherever he is. Ethan is surprised but admits he knows Victor is okay because he needs to finish his part of their quest. Sarah asks Boyd to look at her spider bites. When he finally does, he says the forest is deceptive, causing loss and pain. Boyd, offering to take her pain, suddenly collapses in agony. He fears the voice might be right, that they might not survive in the woods. Sarah encourages him, reminding him of their goal to reach the light and mentioning Ellis. This motivates Boyd to keep going. Meanwhile, at the tower project, Jade steps out to get more wiring. Jim tells him they just got the last shipment. Jade jokingly blames his need for rolling paper, but Jim is unsure and doesn't say anything. Tian Chen Lu is at her temporary shrine when Jade interrupts her. He takes something, hinting they might be able to go home soon. He shares his past, living with his grandma in France until she passed when he was 12, then moving to the US with his uncle. He recalls a life-changing moment when a woman bought him a soda. Hyun suggests the dead always follow you. Jade comforts her, saying her husband will return home with her. She leads him to the altar and asks him to pray with her.
You pray with me.
Back at the project, Jim shows how to adjust the electrical frequency with a screwdriver. Donna tells everyone the volunteers are ready. While Jim gives instructions, Jade and Tian arrive with snacks. Jim asks Jade to help on the roof before taking an apple. Jade playfully warns that anyone messing up will spend a night in the box, but Donna reassures everyone he's just kidding. Christy gives Kenny back his college lamp. He thanks her and says sorry for making things awkward. She confesses she's stuck choosing between an amazing guy and an old flame. He wonders what she'll do next. Holding his hands, she admits she's unsure. Meanwhile, Jim's finishing a ham radio, and Jade's up on the tower. Tabitha tells Jim she's excited to see it work. Jade interrupts their moment, signaling everything's good from the roof. The next task is getting power. The locals light lamps, and then they power up the radio. When it works, they all cheer. Jade thinks they should start broadcasting right away. Tabitha gives Jim a kiss before she goes back to the basement. Clara spots dark storm clouds coming. Boyd and Sarah are climbing a mountain as a storm looms. He stops to rest, but she urges him to keep moving. They hear an air horn more often as they spot a lighthouse. Back with Jim, he's teaching Ethan to switch radio frequencies. He's making distress calls when Donna says the storm's 10 minutes away. Jim wants to keep working. Donna worries about everyone's safety. She's concerned the tower might fall in the storm. Jim knows it's risky but wants to continue. The storm gets worse, and everyone runs inside. Donna thinks they should stop working, but then a voice comes through the radio. Jim is stunned and asks who it is. The voice knows him and warns that Tabitha shouldn't be digging in the basement. Jim heads towards town, leaving Julie confused. Donna's at a loss for words. Light bulbs burst and electrical systems fail. Tabitha, working fast, breaks through the concrete ground and finds herself looking into a massive hole. She's shocked and takes a moment to get her bearings. In the pit, she comes across a disconnected electrical wire. Suddenly, Victor shows up, claiming the mysterious boy in white led him there to meet her. He was doubtful at first, but now he believes it worked. Victor warns her that a monster might wake up any minute. Their flashlight reveals strange writings and symbols on the walls. Meanwhile, Jim doesn't make it down to the basement in time. Up above, Sarah is trying to get Boyd to move. He insists she should leave him behind or they'll both be in danger. Then, the boy in white shows up, communicating with Sarah without speaking. Following his silent instructions, Sarah realizes something alarming about the town. She helps Boyd into a mystical tree, the faraway tree, promising she'll be right behind him. She gives him a flip lighter just before the tree whisks him away to the bottom of a dry well. Using Sarah's lighter, Boyd looks around, getting scared when he can't hear Sarah's responses. In a twist, the local diner, now deserted, suddenly echoes with Neil Young's song Everybody Knows This Is Nowhere from the radio. At that moment, a bus full of passengers pulls into the parking lot, and the episode ends. What will happen next in this eerie town? Will Jim discover the secrets of the basement in time? Can Sarah and Boyd uncover the truth behind the mysterious boy in white and the strange occurrences? Stay tuned and share your thoughts in the comments. The story is just getting started, and your guess is as good as ours. What do you think is lurking in the shadows of this mysterious place? By the way guys, I also recap the 3-Body Problem series on my channel. Click here to see that recap and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Comment on this video and I will reply to every comment. Till then, goodbye.